cobblestones from the streets of New England to my revealed herbed fisherman stew and bye-bye shepherd pie. It's all about the flavors of New England on this episode. Don't miss it. I'm Porter Brooks and I am your host. Everyone's coming to the party. Don't miss it. I'm Porter Brooks, and on this episode, it's called Weekend in New England. I'm just filling my saucepan with a little bit of water. I'm gonna make this beautiful, beautiful menu, and it's all about the flavors and the stylings of New England. I'm gonna be at my tablet because this is how I keep track with you at home. Today is all about the Fisherman in New England. I've got three very simple recipes. One is an herbed fisherman stew. It really has its home in the Mediterranean, all along the European coast, with great garlics and herbs and flavors and lots of chunky white pieces of fish. So I'm calling it my chunky herbed fish stew. There's chunky bread that's gonna go along with that as well. And then I'm gonna do a twist, bye-bye shepherd's pie. We're saying goodbye to the herders and the shepherds, and we're going all fish. So if you're a vegetarian and that does include fish, this is for you. It's gonna be a pot pie essentially with a beautiful mashed potato crust and gorgeous salmon and dill. So simple. Wait till you see this fantastic golden brown crispy crust. And what could be more New England than cabbage and carrots, except today I'm serving it raw as just a little side plate. I think you're gonna love the table stylings, and you're gonna love how all these flavors come together. It's a weekend in New England, and it starts with some great fish. Okay, so I promised 2 individual servings. I'm using these casseroles, which is a pretty large serving for each person. And you always want to spray those, especially with working with the starch. We'll get those ready right off the bat. I've got my water heating over here for my fish stock. Now, if you'd like to not make the stock homemade, feel free to buy a prepared fish stock from your fishmonger. Well, we're using some beautiful, beautiful East Coast salmon. And this piece that came to me this morning actually has its skin on. So I want to show you how you remove that skin. You want it extremely dry. And you're gonna just take your knife and you're gonna go right into the edge of that skin with your hand down and just continue pulling all the way through. Now this was my bad, as they say. When I ordered the salmon for this morning, I didn't ask it to be skinned, but you see, your goal is to get all the gray meat off and save as much as the pink as possible. So this can be thrown away or added for stock. Now, this is a serving for 2, so I want to just make some very large chunks, and I'm going to line the bottom with that big one right in the middle. Look how beautiful that orange is. We'll do about 2, 3 per, and wherever you have a little hole, just fill it in. As you can see, that is quite a large serving, about 8 ounces per person, and that's going to be perfect as we get going. After working with fish, I always like to wash my hands. And then to the fun part of this recipe, it's mashed potatoes. You can do them the night before. You can get a pre-mashed, anything you'd like. You just don't want them runny. I'm gonna drizzle some olive oil on the top of the fish, and I'll just pull in my mashed potatoes, and I'm gonna add some olive oil to those as well. Now, the flavor of salmon that is so common, of course, is dill. Fresh dill or just some beautiful dill seeds will go wonderful here. All that flavor is going to permeate and go down into that fish. The main seasonings go right on the actual protein. So if this was a steak, we'd want to salt that so that it transfers through. A little bit more on our prepared potatoes. And then let's grab a spoon, and we're just going to set that aside. We're going to mix all this up. All right, so dill, potato, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt. Now, if you want to actually add just a little spice to this, some beautiful cayenne would be great. I'm using this Spanish pepper, which will give it just a little bit of kick. All right, this couldn't be any easier, right? A beautiful fisherman's pie, and it's gonna be steamy and luscious. Okay, let me bring that up for you. Now, all we're gonna do is top each of our servings with our potato crust. And you wanna get just enough in there so that you can get your hands in there and fill it up. So we've got about 2 cups, about a cup each. And I like to start with my hands. I just moved that out of the way for you. Make sure you're covering the sides completely. You can use a spatula like I have here, but the best thing is really your hand. A little bit of vent is perfect as well. Let me get that second one up there for you. Okay. Now, if you'd like to add an additional layer, anything like asparagus underneath or a layer of spinach would be wonderful. All the juices from the salmon will cook and they will baste as we go. The last thing we're gonna wanna do is hit that with a little bit of olive oil over the top. And you know my philosophy about repeating flavors, a little bit of dill so that we know what's to come when your guests sit down. And if you season high, you'll get great distribution. A little bit of dill. And the last thing is that sprinkle of white pepper right on the top. Okay, that is our fisherman's pie. How easy is that? It's salmon with our mashed potatoes. We have dill, we have salt, we have white pepper, and they're gonna pop into the oven. 350, just for about 10 to 15 minutes. You're gonna want this top to be golden brown and all puffed up. When we come back, I'm going to start our fisherman stew. We're going to serve it in this beautiful French pâté terrine, actually. And we're going to add some flavors, talk about our tablescape, which is all in the grays and the blues of New England, just like the clapboard sides on the building, just like the beautiful seascapes and the watercolors. I even have some cobblestones that remind me of the streets in Boston. I'm Porter Brooks. Don't miss us. If you're tuning in, come right back. Cobblestones from the streets of New England to my revealed herbed fisherman stew and bye-bye shepherd pie. It's all about the flavors of New England on this episode. Don't miss it. Cobblestones from the streets of New England to my revealed herbed fisherman stew and bye-bye shepherd pie. It's all about the flavors of New England on this episode. Don't miss it. Well, it's Porter Brooks, and what could be more New England than a fantastic head of bright green cabbage and some carrots? Well, of course, the seafood, and that's what this episode is all about. If you're just joining me, we just made our fisherman's shepherd's pie. It's called my bye-bye shepherd's pie. It's all made with fish and mashed potatoes. The first course in this wonderful dinner is actually going to be these individual crocks of a gorgeous fish stew. Now, I know enough not to try to make a New England clam chowder because I'm not from New England. So I've got my own version, which really is rooted in the south of France and throughout the Mediterranean. I want to start with the base of my stew. I've had some water heating here, and we're going to turn up our heat. The first thing that goes in with the stew, of course, is just going to be a little bit of fat. So in this case, it'll just be about a tablespoon of olive oil. Remember, we're only serving for 2, so it's really simple. And in today's world, I love getting help from the store. This is called a mirepoix, which is the Holy Trinity, if you know about the Cajun land or in France. It's all 3 things. It's carrots, celery, and onions together. And that's going to go right in the bottom of our pan. Now, garlic goes in after that simply because we don't want the garlic to scorch. I'll put a dash of crushed garlic in there. An olive wood spoon is really beautiful. You can hear that sizzle. We're going to let those just become tender, just enough so that we can start adding the liquid. Now, in the meantime, we're going to talk about the fish in our fish stew. I have several different items. I have a beautiful ahi right here. And this is stew for two, so we want these to be bite-sized pieces. That's perfectly just about right. So just under about an inch. We're gonna drop that in. Some gorgeous halibut. Nice cold water, Eastern Arctic type fishes. And they don't have to be expensive. So we're gonna get 6 bites out of that. Drop that in. Continue stirring and marrying those flavors together. And just as you see the bottom of that pan start to brown, that's when I'm going to start adding just a little bit of my water. There you go. That's how we're going to get that base going. Now the fish will cook very, very quickly, so we just want to go back. I've got some prepared pieces, more cod, more halibut. It's important that these are large pieces because you don't want it to be a creamed bisque. We don't want the fish to fall apart. I think those will go in. And those last, look at that, 3 beautiful pieces, already the perfect size, are gonna pop in. Now, you can't have a fisherman's stew without the shrimp. I have tails on, so I'm just separating the shrimp. You could use a raw shrimp, but I've already done a pre-cook. These are just really gonna turn for only a few minutes. Pop those shells off so that your guests don't get one. I'd say about 5 or 6 shrimp per person in each one of those crocs. Just dropping that in my pinch bowl. I remember the first time I went to New England, I was probably about 6 years old. My dad was on a business trip, and we went to see our friends who lived in Lexington. And we got to see Paul Revere's house, and we got to see where it was 1 by land and 2 by sea, I think is everything that we were all taught from the region, and we really fell in love with it. Having been from California, we had never seen a snowfall, and it really was a special trip. I began to fall in love with the flavors of New England at that time. I'm going to add the rest of my water. And the Mediterranean twist to this beautiful stew is going to be about a cup of white wine right on top. Okay. We do need a little viscosity and a little fat with this recipe. The way I like to do that is to do about 1.5 tablespoons of a cube of butter, and we're just gonna mix that right into our stew. All right, main flavor, always checking my tablet, is gonna be the herbes de Provence. Now we have dill in the first recipe, so this one I wanna just change the profile flavor. Really herby, garlicky, Frenchy, and a crack of some black pepper. This is a stew, so we don't have to worry so much about all the colors. Okay. Oh man, that smells amazing. I've got some extra fish here, but I don't think it's needed. Let me just show you what that looks like coming together. We see the beautiful oranges. We see the greens of the celery, the shrimp. I mean, nothing's wasted here, nothing's spared here. We're gonna bring this up to a very quick boil. It'll take just a second, and then I'm gonna transfer it to this antique, this was actually my mother's, antique French pâté mold. However, it's cast iron, which means it's oven safe. And that's what we're gonna actually bake. Oh wow, this beautiful, beautiful stew in. About a minute with that. And let's look for a nice, strong ladle. If you've seen me use soup ladles before, I like an 8 ounce. We'll turn our heat off. And let me just pour that out for you. Oh, that is a fisherman's stew. Get all the chunky monkeys right off the bottom. Look how fantastic that is. Truth be told, you could chill this, add a little fat or some gelatin, and you could make a fisherman's pâté. Pulling it right out of this beautiful, beautiful piece that reminds me of my mother and reminds me of home. She wasn't a fancy cook, but she was a good cook. All right, last one in. The shrimp on the top. I'm gonna cover this. Fantastic, look at that. I'm gonna pop it in the oven. My world, right? 325, 350, until this is heated all the way through. I'm Porter Brooks, and today is all about a weekend in New England. We have our fisherman's pie in, about ready to come out. We now have our fantastic herb chunky fish stew. And when we come back, we're gonna talk cabbage, carrots, and a few other things, including a dynamite tablescape. Don't miss this episode. I'll be right back. Cobblestones from the streets of New England to my revealed herbed fisherman stew, and bye-bye shepherd pie. It's all about the flavors of New England on this episode. Don't miss it. Cobblestones from the streets of New England to my revealed herbed fisherman stew, and bye-bye shepherd pie. It's all about the flavors of New England on this episode. Don't miss it. I'm Porter Brooks, and if you're just joining us, this is a weekend in New England. What I've made is a vinegar that is infused with some coriander. It's white balsamic, some apple juice, but again, I'm going to repeat the flavor with some dried dill. I'm going to put it right in there. This is going to be great on our little cabbage side dish. My inspiration on this was simply the wedge salad, which is really popular these days, and I thought we would do something simple. And if you need a big knife to do it with, try to find one of these antique ones. I have a beautiful head of green cabbage, probably the least expensive item in your entire grocery store. Hold on. There we go. Look at the gorgeous color and flavor. I have two guests, two wedges. We're going to take that bruised leaf off and cut the bottom. Now you always want to make sure that the stem is in place because that's what's going to hold it together. Look for the edge and go right down the middle. One cut will give you these two beautiful side salads. And what else could be more England than these great carrots? I thought I'd do organics, top them just like that. We can use those for stock, and then do one slice, and that is going to be the edge of our plate with our stew, which, by the way, if I'm smelling correctly, I think our fisherman's pie with the salmon is ready. Oh yeah. One in one hand, one in the other. Take a look at that. Gorgeous fisherman's pie. Now all I have to do is get him to the table. When you see me next time, I'm going to show you how to make the table look really great. Well, from the kitchen to the table, and not the dining room table. That's that great vinaigrette I made. Not the dining room table, this is my entry table, and I've converted it for a great table for two, me and one guest this afternoon. Everything is about New England on this table, so let me walk you through the tablescape. First of all, I put it by this great brick wall, which we have here in the loft, and the colors of New England, this pale blue. On top are my individual soup crocks, and exactly what I'm going to do with that, the stew that I told you about, it's sitting under here perfectly warm. We're going to actually fill one up. So I'm going to pull my beautiful, there is our herbed fisherman stew. And remember, the specialty for our guests will be these individual crocks. Look at those fantastic flavors coming out. Oh, there's the shrimp and that beautiful mirepoix, some of the ahi. And we'll just make sure that there's a good dollop of that beautiful broth right on the top. That's our first one on our hot tray, ready to serve. And then out of the magic of the kitchen comes the other items that we worked with. Again, with our plate in place, I'm going to set down the cabbage. I'm going to add the carrots, and then use a nice oven-safe spatula, like a wooden piece, and put that beautiful hot plate right on top. Okay, weekend in New England is about to begin. I'm going to take my seat and tell you about the rest of everything here. I decided to pour a brown beer. I like beer with the seafood. It's very simple. We'll do a tall, everyday glass. Doesn't the table look great? So simple. 2 votive candles, great flowers, and an old safe deposit box to serve the bread in. Everything that New England, the beginning of our country, really stands for. Let's get to some of the flavors and some of the tastes. You can see our amazing fish pie, and I'm going to dig into that. Oh, beautiful chunks of salmon right there. I want to get right to where we're going to start. Reveal that Fisherman stew. Perfect. Beautiful blue napkin. I've set with everyday pounded flatware. Let me get that a little closer so I can see the shrimp. There's the ogden. I'm looking for a piece of that ogden there. There it is. Oh, let's try that. Nice spoonful. The white wine brings a whole new flavor profile to that. Like I said, I would never venture into the land of chowder, not being from New England. I'll leave that to them, but this is my version on exactly how to make it better. Well, that is it as far as our Weekend in New England episode is concerned. I hope you enjoyed it. For all the recipes, tweet me at @theporterbrooks. There's tips, there's tricks, there's techniques, everything that you're going to want to do to make this menu in your own home, in your entryway. Change it up. Your friends are going to love it. Join me next time when I entertain the world one table at a time. Cheers.